Coming up right now on this episode of I Couldn't Throw It Out.
Because it's very psychological and personal and neurotic and beautiful. You know, it's all of these different things, our relationship to the stuff of our lives.
Those are the words of Theresa Rebeck, the author of the play I Need That, which is on Broadway till December 30th and stars Danny DeVito. This play asks a question that is near and dear to our hearts. How do you let go of the things you've saved for a lifetime? To hear Theresa's thoughts about that, keep listening.
I couldn't throw it out. I had to scream and shout. Before I turn to dust, I've got to throw it out.
Hello, Sally Libby. Sally, are you there? If you respond to me, I promise I will throw out something right now. Okay, everybody, I'm just kidding you. I'm not throwing anything out, except maybe Sally's computer, because we just discovered that it's broken, so she can watch us and she can listen, but she cannot answer back. We aren't exactly ready for this. It's not what we had planned, but on the positive side, I do have a copy of Sally's questions, and I guess I'm the one who gets to share them with our very special guest, Theresa Rebeck. Theresa is the author of the play I Need That, which is on Broadway and stars Danny DeVito. He plays a guy who can't throw out his possessions. Sally, does that remind you of anyone you know? On second thought, I know, you can't answer me. So everyone, let me say Sally is shaking her head vigorously in the yes direction, and I believe she is thinking about me. Meanwhile, this play also stars Lucy DeVito, who is Danny's real-life daughter and his daughter in the show. Lucy's character really wants her father to throw out his stuff. In other words, she sounds a lot like Sally. While we're talking about familiar personalities, there's another character in the play, a neighbor played by Ray Anthony Thomas, and we accidentally discovered that his understudy is our high school friend, the very talented Lance Roberts. We've only known Lance for about 50 years or so, so I'm reading Sally's lips, and she is screaming, "Go Lance!" Now that we got that out of the way, we're ready to talk with Theresa. She can help us dig deeper than ever into our favorite topic, which, of course, is throwing out the things we save. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Before we go any farther, I want to let people know a little bit more about you. I believe your first Broadway play was Mauritius in 2007. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I Need This is your fifth Broadway play. This makes you a record breaker. You are the female playwright with the most non-musical productions on Broadway.
You can call them plays.
Yeah, I'll call them plays.
It's a very specific kind of record. It's like woman and straight plays. I trust that somebody came up with this stat and it's a good stat. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it no matter what.
Well, it's pretty impressive. Do you by any chance know who the record breaker was for men?
Do you? Have you done it? The research?
Yeah, I looked it up. I asked ChatGPT.
ChatGPT?
Do you have a guess?
I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Well, you won't be surprised. Neil Simon.
Oh, Neil Simon.
30 plays on Broadway.
Okay, that's crazy. That's prolific. People say I'm prolific. I'm like, I'm no Neil Simon.
Well, along those lines, I counted 24 published plays on your website.
Oh.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that is correct.
And then Sally reminded me that you had 22 one-act plays also.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of one-act plays, sure.
Well, that's almost 50 plays. That's pretty incredible.
Yes, I have to say, when I get bored, my brain starts to attack me. So if you give it something to think about other than how I suck, it's happier, and so am I. I always feel like every writer has some version of a neurosis that's wound in there, and that's mine.
Well, I honor and revere that particular neurosis, and I'm just going to go over some of what you produced during all that time. One of them is Omnium Gatherum, which was nominated for a Pulitzer in 2003, and Seminar, which was on Broadway in 2011 with Alan Rickman,
Yep,
and Bernhardt Hamlet on Broadway with Janet McTeer in 2018. Pretty amazing people to have in your plays.
Right.
You wrote and directed the 2018 movie Trouble with Angelica Houston and Bill Pullman. It got great reviews, and it is now on my Amazon Prime viewing list. And you've written a lot for TV. You created the 2011 series Smash. You wrote for LA Law, NYPD Blue, Law and Order Criminal Intent, and other shows, correct?
All of this is true.
Wow. And you did a lot of directing. This is why Sally told me she was exhausted when she looked at your resume. And you wrote 3 novels and a memoir. And you won many playwriting awards. And you were on Newsweek's list of 150 most fearless women. And you produced 2 children. And now you're talking to us, which is amazing.
Yes. And this is the most exciting thing that's happened to me all day. So I really appreciate it.
You are very nice to say that, and we're very excited about it too. Unfortunately, Sally and I could not get to see the play before talking with you, and we are very interested in this play because our podcast is I Couldn't Throw It Out, and your play is I Need That.
This is your play. I have to tell you, you have to come see it. You're going to be so happy.
Can you talk us through enough of the plot that you feel comfortable without giving too much away?
Yeah. Danny DeVito plays Sam, older dude who lives in the house that he's lived in for many, many years. His wife passed away like 3 years before. And the place is just full of stuff. And there's the threat of the neighbors have called in the health department, the fire department. They're trying to get him to clean his house up. I did all the research about how this happens. And so his daughter and his best friend are trying to help him get rid of stuff, but he's sort of standing in a kind of addiction to it and an inability to let anything go. He doesn't have to throw everything out. The heart of it is impossible for him. And it's very funny. And you get to see what his life is like when he's there alone with his stuff. And you also get to see the argument about, it's time to move on.
I've heard that the set is really amazing. Can you describe it to us and talk a little bit about what is in the set and how it was assembled?
Well, the set does a really cool trick.
Don't tell the trick because everybody listening to this is going to see it.
Okay. It's also pretty much a whole house built on the stage. You only see the downstairs, but he's in the middle of having been told again and again and again, you've got to get rid of some of this stuff. He's moved it from the upstairs rooms to the downstairs. And so it really is like a creature that, the things that he has there, old board games, like an old tennis racket, his wife's clothing, which has been there for 3 years. Everything you can imagine, all the stuff of his life is right there on the set with him.
What was the process for casting Danny DeVito? How did you get hooked up with him?
The director and I, Moritz von Stulpnagel, were talking about kind of this area during the pandemic. And he said to me, before really I had even started writing, he said, "What do you think of Danny DeVito?" And I said, "Oh, I'm obsessed with Danny DeVito." And he said he and his daughter were looking for Lucy, the great Lucy DeVito, that they were looking for something to do together. So we thought this might turn into something they could do together. And so I talked to them even before I started writing.
So in a certain way, it was written for them?
To them, yeah, certainly.
That's so rare that playwright could be able to do that.
Right? What an opportunity. It just never happens. And sometimes I think about things like, Molière did this, Shakespeare did, they had a company that they wrote to, and we just don't get that opportunity. So it was really thrilling to be asked to step into that relationship with them.
Did either of them ever talk to you about the fact that they have saved things or not saved things?
No. Well, actually, they didn't. A lot of the information about holding on to things came from me because I am the person who does that. My inner monologue seems to be, why have one of those when you could have 20? I have an arrowhead collection. Yeah, I have a lot of stuff. Yeah.
That actually is one of the things I was going to ask, which is that even when you're prolific, writing a play is a big commitment. I'm curious why you decided to write about saving things and the value of them. and the difficulty of throwing them out.
The play is very much about the value of them. I mean, I actually like how the conversation curls around the comfort of these things and the value of them, and also the need to move on from them. And I feel like the play really does cover the necessity. Like, my parents are very frail. Their lives were starting to get smaller when I started writing it. And it's very much informed by that, and by the fact that telling someone that you have to move on from your stuff at a certain point in life, it's a stand-in for all the things that people give up when they reach a point in their lives where things get smaller. My parents really didn't have the obsession with stuff that I have. They lived pretty simple. During the pandemic, my parents were more and more isolated, and we needed them to move into a smaller house. That was hard for them. And so for me, the challenges of growing older are reflected in the metaphor, so that the stuff on the stage is both literal and figurative, that the things you have to give up are finally the souvenirs of your life. And that's what makes it so challenging for me. Danny's character, Sam, is very eloquent in figuring out how to explain this, where there's a moment where he talks about how our memories don't just live in us, they live all around us. They live in the things that we have. So those things become like a tuning fork. When you touch something, you remember where you got it, who was with you, and that the stories kind of erupt out of that relationship between the thing and the soul. And so there's something painful, really, about stripping that down, that the play is, I think, very respectful of.
It's exactly the theme that we discuss all the time on this podcast. Digging a little deeper with that, we save these things because we want to keep the memories?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But also, it sometimes feels like what really gets infused for me are things that are in and of themselves lovely. Like, I also have way too many mechanical pencils. I love mechanical pencils. I love a wider lead. And so I found these Pentel mechanical pencils with a number 9 lead. And now I have like a whole bunch of them. And they're not making them anymore. And I'm nervous about that, because I feel like this is the perfect pencil. And so I also run around sometimes on Amazon going, that one looks like that might be good too. And I actually did just find one that's pretty good. I think with some of it, it is just specific to a certain memory, and that makes it precious. But with other things, it's just kind of an excessive OCD kind of thing gets triggered. And then next thing you know, I have 20 mechanical pencils on my desk.
But you introduced an idea that we have not covered yet, which is that there's beauty in some of these things we save, and we save them because they're beautiful to us.
Yes.
That may sound obvious, but we have never really touched on that. And that's really cool.
What do you talk about?
We talk more about how difficult it is to let go of the things because of the memories in them. And we try to tell the stories of these memories in order to then throw it out. Like, if you tell the story and preserve the story, can you throw out the thing? Haven't been too successful with that.
I was going to say, I don't think that would work. I think that would just make me want to keep it longer.
Do you ever try to throw things out?
Yeah, I do it all the time. I have to say, I still have way too many books, but the ebook actually stepped in and saved my health in a lot of ways, around, because I still have too many books, but they're all like in little files on my Kindle. And so that's much better, much healthier, because I used to, even when I was just going out for the afternoon, I would stick like 3 books in my shoulder bag, and they're heavy. For a while I was reading Clarissa. That thing is huge.
Oh my God, yes.
My husband still tells jokes about Theresa lugging Clarissa all over the place. I did do that. But now I do still have too many books, but not as many too many.
Going back to talking about your parents, I also went through a thing that led to this podcast partially, is that my sister and I went through my parents' stuff. They had made no plans on getting rid of anything, all their papers, everything like that. I'm wondering if there's some link between saving things and trying to stave off mortality, or if giving them away is sort of what you were hinting at, which is that it is the beginning of mortality when you give it away or throw it out.
I find that those are very different acts, giving something away and throwing it out. And that there are a lot of things I'm perfectly happy to throw away, but there are other things that I would need to give to someone, like my Arrowhead collection, or I have a lot of, here I can show you one.
Wow.
That's a Zuni medicine bear. They come from New Mexico, and there's a specific artist who I really like named Stuart Quandalacy. So I have a bunch of his bears.
And so I'm going to describe it. It's sort of emerald colored, and it's got a engraving on it kind of, and it's circular, and it's a stone, right?
Yeah, it's a stone, and that line in the middle of it goes to the heart. It's called the heart line. The bear looks both humble and strong to me. And the idea is that this will bring strength to your heart.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think you've just helped us with another thing that we have not clarified up to this point, the difference between giving something away and throwing it out. And that both of them relieve you of the object, but in a very different way.
Yeah, they really do. I also have too many shoes. And every now and then I have a couple friends who have the same size feet. And I know I have just stepped across the line in terms of I have too many. And then I invite my friends over and give them, I would never ask them if you want this like old dirty shoe, but usually they're something that I got and then never wore as much as I thought I would or something. And that always feels great.
Yeah, it's really different from throwing them out. Do you save cards and letters? Because I have every card and letter that a friend has sent me. I've saved all of them.
No, I don't. I don't save those.
Why? Why not?
Wow, that's interesting. It's got something to do with this like object of beauty. I mean, I love the feeling both that person had when they wrote the note and that comes to me, but it doesn't seem replicable. Like if I read it again, my daughter is a really lovely artist. And even when she was very small, she would make incredible cards. You get an astonishing drawing with I love you, Mom on it. Those I save, but those really are the only cards and letters that I save, or those things from my daughter. I think it does have something to do with their physical beauty. Yeah, like that's the right word for it.
Wow, so different for me.
Yeah.
One of my projects this year was I actually sorted all of the correspondence of my lifetime by person.
Wow.
So I can say, here's everything Sally sent me in my whole life. She was one of my biggest correspondents. My wife was my other biggest, and my mother and my sister Debbie sent me the most stuff. But any friend who sent me stuff, I have it. And I found that I do relive it and bring all these memories come back of another time when I look at those letters. I'm not going to be throwing anything out today, but just to give you a hint, I rediscovered when I was doing that, this letter, a friend's cousin was a playwright, and I sent him one of my plays in 1990. He wrote to me, "Dear Michael, read your play, thought on page 14 that you were working awfully hard, and decided on page 39 that it wasn't going anywhere fast. So I think if I didn't know the writer, I would have stopped." That's how his letter started.
You saved that?
Yeah, because I think the humility of like realizing, okay, I'm a piece of crap. It's a good thing every now and then. I mean, I saw value in saving that.
Well, I see value in things, and I see value in this moment. Like if somebody asked me to revisit this and go watch it again, I'd be happy to do that. But somehow that's interesting. Oh God, I hope I don't get addicted to letters now. I don't need any more stuff around here. But
oh no, I know I don't want to have any bad effect on your life.
Honestly, on like opening nights now, they're hard for me to write these notes. Everybody gets a note on opening night, especially when you're the writer. They expect you to write a really good note. And I just feel like I'm wrung out by that point. I don't have any good notes in me. And so I tend to try and get some little thing that they can keep, like a cool little thing. That's interesting how this is folding over into what you talk about. And for I Need That, I got everybody. There's a moment at the beginning of the play where Sam is talking about a bottle cap. that he saved. His friend sits on the bottle cap and he says, "Don't sit on that. I need that." It's one of the 2 times in the play where you hear the phrase, "I need that." And then you find out what this enormous, incredible story emerges from the bottle cap. That's 67 years old, and it's like a Fanta grape. And so I found online at Etsy these a little Fanta bottle cap kind of enamel that's on a key ring. So I could actually give everybody a teeny, they can hang it on their key ring or just put it in a drawer or throw it away. They didn't cost that much. But for me, that's so interesting that carries it. No, I don't need to write a note if I find exactly the right little thing, the little souvenir. It is sort of like stuff. But because I live in New York, and this happened over time, I was like, the presents got smaller and smaller because I know that everyone lives in a very contained space. And so I try to think up something I could give everybody on opening night that's very small so they won't have to throw it away because it's just too big.
Well, you succeeded this time. You found exactly the right thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, the plays that I've done, I've written a personal note to each person, and then I've received personal notes from them, and I have every one of those personal notes. And those are treasures to me. I get them out, and I'm like, I remember that actor now. I remember what he did.
Wow.
Along those lines, I'm curious what you save related to your plays. Do you print out copies of your scripts?
I do.
Do you have like 30 different versions of I Need That?
Yeah, I don't do that. I really don't do that anymore. The University of Delaware has like so-called papers. I just can't imagine like why this would be interesting to anybody. Because I have the plays. The plays are mostly published and I have them on my bookshelves.
But like, for instance, in my mind, when I thought I was going somewhere with this, I thought, well, what if I need to go back to an earlier version and I don't have it?
It stays in the computer. The computer has everything.
What about all the memorabilia from your plays, like programs, call lists?
Yeah, I don't save that stuff. I just don't. Isn't that interesting? I save other things. I have too many of other things. I don't know. You know what it is? This is what I think is part of it. I heard one time that Peter Brooks, when people want to talk to him about like that very famous Midsummer that he did, or that's that or the other thing, that generally he doesn't want to talk about it because he feels like that's behind me. I'm not thinking about that anymore. I've already done that. When you're thinking about writing and telling stories all the time, like once you've finished something, it's like there's some other things to think about. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. It's just exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
For instance, I had a salt and pepper shaker collection that my sister helped me gather, and she would buy me the stupidest, most obscene, silliest, craziest. And then everybody heard about it, and Sally probably gave me some too. And I very easily dismantled that collection because it wasn't useful to me. They were funny to look at. There were 2 outhouses. I'm full of P and I'm full of S. There were 2 salt and pepper shakers having sex. There were all kinds of things like that. But then I've got several copies of programs from plays I was involved with, and I can't even get rid of the duplicates.
That's a sign of how precious it was, obviously, to you. And these moments are precious to me. I think I just hold them in different ways. I don't know. There's like one of the plays that I did in New York is called The Understudy. And it was so beautiful to me. It was just incredible. And I went to see it like 3 times a week for the entire run. I was surprised at myself that I just wanted to sit in the back and watch it over and over. And I'm really grateful that I did that now because that was precious to me in some sort of very much deeper way than many times. And I love my little plays, but maybe it's just that, I don't know. I can't answer this. It's very provocative. Yeah.
It's fun to think about it. One of the things that Sally has raised to me is the element of narcissism in my stuff. It requires a certain amount of narcissism, not only to think it's important, but to think that telling other people about it is worthwhile, that anyone would want to hear.
Certainly what it says to me is that the theater is very precious to you and that every time you got to do it, that stayed with you in a really powerful way. And so when you revisit it, it still maintains that potency.
Yeah. Part of what we want to do with this podcast is to help other people think about the stuff that they've saved and actually inspire them to look at it again.
Yeah.
It's sort of like setting an example, like, oh, I've done this. Now everyone else can do it too, because it's so meaningful. Otherwise, imagine yourself, you're gone. One day you're going to go, you're mortal. All these things that represent your life are going to be there. Someone's going to lift them and throw them in a dumpster. And you might never have revisited them to try to figure out what it all meant. What did your life mean? What were all these things? What did they add up to?
That's true. I think there are some people who don't have that opportunity, because they die suddenly or young, or that just means they didn't have that moment. I don't think that means their life didn't have the meaning that it had. It's just that they didn't revisit their life and didn't have the chance to do that. Now, I will say, like, my mom had no problem ever just getting rid of stuff. And before they moved into this really nice place that they live now, it's assisted living, she was giving away every one of her treasures, like, you get this, you get that. And at a pace where we were all like, I don't want these dishes. Do you want these dishes? I have 5 brothers and sisters. And then there would be things like, well, I asked and asked and asked for that little statuette, and she gave it to so-and-so who didn't even want it. That was a bit of a problem. But the thing that my mom really saved and went over and over and over were her photographs. And I think that maybe photographs for some people have that kind of potency that your memos have.
Yes.
We still do that whenever I visit. The way to keep her happy is to say, let's look at the pictures. I want to look at the pictures. And then all of a sudden she's reliving her life, and it's a good thing. It's a lovely thing.
And the truth is, especially with photos, they don't have much value to other people when you go.
It's true.
But they have value to you. I want to go back to the play for a little bit more. Sally and I often laugh on this podcast. Most of the time we are laughing. Is there something funny about saving things? Because you wrote a comedy.
Well, there's plenty funny about saving things in this place for sure. But there's also a Cage-like quality to it. By the end of the play, you understand that too much stuff is not funny at all.
Yeah.
The way it covers you with the past, it's dangerous. It's useless in a lot of ways. It's memories in action, but they take up a lot of room.
And they get in the way of the present.
Yeah, that's very much at work in this play.
I read about this wonderful scene where Danny plays a game of Sorry with himself.
Yes.
What was the genesis of that? Do you have a Sorry game, or do you remember playing it? Or
yeah, we played it a lot. I just found it like weirdly therapeutic. Like you weren't just like running around and buying property. I never liked Monopoly or Risk. I never liked Risk because you were just killing people. Anyway, I liked Sorry.
It seems like there's something metaphorical that you were looking for.
Yes, that's accurate. Somebody asked me about it, and I was like, it's the repetition of the sound sorry, which contains grief in it. You get so sorry about things that never get resolved, or sorry that things have passed. So it was really great that this game that I knew so intimately was also called Sorry. And it was also great that Danny has the instrument. He really has the comedic know-how to play an entire game of Sorry with himself. The stagehands put the cards in the exact right order so that Danny can take his cue off the card and remember where he is in the game. It's really extraordinary.
Amazing.
It's sort of like Beckett on acid. It's really funny and strange and heartbreaking to watch that man play Sorry with himself. It's just beautiful.
Have you saved any of your childhood things for your children? Are they interested in getting any of your stuff, or do they want you to get rid of stuff?
Oh, my kids are always going, can I have that when you die? And we just go, ah. So yeah, yes, they're very fascinated on, and they actually discuss it in front of us. I get that when they die. No, she said I could have that when they die.
And you wanted that figurine that your mother had.
Oh, no kidding. I was like, Mom, she doesn't want it. I want it. I got the dishes.
I'm angry on your behalf. Did working on this project get you to think a little bit about the line between hoarding and archiving at all? Hoarding, I guess, is a disease.
Oh, yeah. The character of Sam, played by Danny, is actually not a hoarder. It looks like it, but you do realize it's not like those people are lost. There's a kind of mental illness, and that's not what's happened to him. I did watch several of those hoarder shows. They're really scary, and that's not what's going on. It's more, he's got to just put stuff in bags and kick it out the front door. But there's no like dead cats under anywhere or anything gross like that. So it's more on that side of the spectrum, not on the archiving. He keeps saying he's organizing, and it's so clear that he's not organizing. I feel like archiving things is actually organizing. I know people who archive things and then put them in storage so that they're there for posterity, but I don't do that. Whatever. When I'm gone, I hope somebody nice gets my bears. They're precious to me. My stone bears, my medicine bears.
So you're a collector.
Well, certainly I'm a collector of these little bears. Isn't that lovely?
They're very beautiful and brings us back to where we started, which is that you save things for beauty and I save things to humiliate myself.
Yeah, I like my way better.
Yeah, I think so. It's a little healthier. I knew that someone who wrote a play about this had given it some thought, and I was right.
I will say, it goes deep. This thing goes deep. It took a long time. And I think that your idea to do a podcast about it is really kind of brilliant because it's very psychological and personal and neurotic and beautiful. It's all of these different things. Our relationship to the stuff of our lives is complicated.
I never can quite figure it out, which is what keeps us going episode after episode. Like it's always trying to figure out a little bit more about what's going on here. And so we really are so grateful for you. I just want to find out what's coming up for you next. As Sally would say, how many movies, TV shows, Broadway plays, and books will you write next month?
I am not doing all that. I've been working on the book of a musical with Christopher Ashley and Cyndi Lauper. And it's based on the movie Working Girl from the 80s.
Yes, loved it.
I loved it too. We all love it. And so in January, and then a little after that, we're doing a couple of big workshops of it. It's moving ahead. And I'm a huge fan of Cindy's, and it's a thrill to be working on it with somebody who's like an icon to me.
In the meantime, I want to urge everyone who is listening to go to Broadway and see I Need That, starring Danny DeVito by Theresa Rebeck. It's at the American Airlines Theater until December 30th. And I checked online and there are still tickets available. So please do yourself a favor. Be sure to get one of those tickets and hold onto the stub and save it forever and then get it out and think about how much you loved it and how grateful you are to Theresa Rebeck. That's what I say. Though she wouldn't save the stub herself, I guess.
No, I wouldn't.
Before we go, I just want to do a little listener appreciation. So grateful to everyone who listens to our podcasts. There are probably 10 billion podcasts out there. So we are especially thankful to anyone who tunes in. And if you want to find out what's coming next, you can follow us on Instagram at Throw It Out Pod, or just go to our website. In the right column, you'll see a box where you can sign up for our newsletter, and that is at throwitoutpodcast.com. And yes, we will post photos from I Need That on the site, also at throwitoutpodcast.com on the page for this episode. Thank you again, Theresa, for sharing your insights with us. It was just so helpful and so interesting.
Thank you.
Sally is also sending her thanks silently. She's nodding furiously again. One last reminder, the next time you open your music streaming service, do not forget to check out the super amazing rock band, Life in a Blender. You will have so much fun listening to them, almost as much fun as you will have right now listening to our theme song, which is performed by Life in a Blender's Don Ralph, along with Boots Camp and Jen Ayers. And that's it. Bye, Theresa. And thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Look up that stairway to my big attic. Am I a hoarder or am I a fanatic? Decades of stories, memories stacked. There is a redolence of some irrelevant facts. Oh, I couldn't throw it out. so unjust. But still I know I must. Before I turn to dust, I've got to throw it out. Before I turn to dust, I've got to throw it out. But I couldn't throw it out. Oh, I couldn't throw it out. I'll sort through my possessions in these painful sessions. I guess this is what it's about. The poems, cards, and papers, the moldy, musty vapors, I just gotta sort it out. Oh, I couldn't throw it